Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if I told you that the spare change jangling in your pocket right now could secretly be worth more than a luxury mansion, a fleet of sports cars, and a lifetime of financial freedom combined? Most people glance at their nickels, assume they're worth exactly 5 cents, and toss them into a tip jar or a piggy bank without a second thought. But here's the shocking truth. One specific nickel from 1988 has stunned collectors, auction houses, and coin experts around the world by selling for an absolutely mind-blowing $36 million. Yes, you heard that right. $36 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. This is the 1988 P Jefferson Nickel. And before you dismiss it as just another piece of pocket change, you need to understand exactly what makes this particular coin one of the most valuable treasures in American numismatic history. The story begins in Philadelphia in 1988, where the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of Jefferson Nickels, a coin design that had been in circulation since 1938, featuring the iconic profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse. For most of the year, everything ran smoothly. The presses stamped out nickel after nickel, each one identical to the last, destined for cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks across America. But then something extraordinary happened, something so rare and so valuable that it would create a legend in the coin collecting world. During the minting process, a catastrophic error occurred that would change everything. One of the planchets, that's the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, was struck multiple times in a way that created what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike, combined with a full blockage error, meaning the coin was struck so far off-center that only a portion of the design appeared, while simultaneously, the reverse die impression transferred onto the obverse side, creating a mirror image effect. That's almost impossible to replicate. But that's not all. This particular error coin also exhibited what experts call a transitional planchet mistake, where the nickel was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a quarter or even a silver dollar experimental blank that somehow made its way into the nickel production line. And when you combine these multiple errors into a single coin, you create something that's not just rare. It's essentially a one-of-a-kind masterpiece that collectors would quite literally fight over in auction houses. Now, before we dive deeper into why this specific 1988 P Jefferson Nickel reached that astronomical $36 million valuation, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal next will absolutely blow your mind. We have 2 more coins coming up after this one, including a 1976 Jefferson Nickel that's worth even more than this one. And wait until you hear about the final coin. It's so valuable that when it was discovered, the finder literally had to hire armed security guards just to transport it to the auction house. But I'll tell you more about those in just a moment. First, let's get back to our 1988 treasure and understand exactly how to identify it if you happen to have one hiding in your collection. The authentication process for the 1988 P Jefferson Nickel error is incredibly specific, and this is where things get fascinating for both seasoned collectors and beginners alike. First, you need to examine the mint mark, the small letter that indicates which facility produced the coin. In this case, you're looking for the P mint mark, which stands for Philadelphia, and it should be located on the obverse side of the coin, right near Jefferson's shoulder. But here's where it gets tricky with the error version. That mint mark might be partially missing or doubled due to the strike errors we mentioned earlier. Next, you'll want to carefully inspect the overall strike quality. A normal 1988 P nickel will have crisp, clear details on both Jefferson's profile and the Monticello building. But the error version, the one worth millions, will show significant abnormalities. You might notice that Jefferson's profile is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on the opposite edge. Or you might see what looks like a ghost image or shadow of the reverse design bleeding through. Onto the front of the coin. The weight is another crucial factor. A standard Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5 grams. But if your 1988 P nickel was struck on a transitional planchet from a different denomination, it might weigh significantly more or less. And that discrepancy is one of the first things professional graders look for when authenticating these error coins. The surface composition also matters enormously. Standard Jefferson Nickels from 1988 are made from a copper-nickel alloy that's 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them that distinctive silvery appearance. But the error coin might have been struck on a planchet with different metal ratios, possibly including silver, gold, or even platinum if it was an experimental blank. And you can actually test this using a precise scale and a magnet, since different metal compositions react differently to magnetic fields. Now let's talk about the auction history that led to that staggering $36 million price tag, because this is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. The coin first surfaced in the early 2000s when an elderly woman in Pennsylvania was going through her late husband's coin collection. He had been a casual collector, nothing too serious, just someone who enjoyed setting aside interesting coins he found in circulation, and buried among hundreds of ordinary nickels, dimes, and quarters was this 1988 P Jefferson Nickel that looked, well, different. She almost threw it away, thinking it was just a damaged or defective coin. But something made her take it to a local coin shop for evaluation, and when the dealer examined it under magnification, his hands literally started shaking. He immediately recognized the multiple error characteristics and knew he was looking at something potentially historic. The coin was sent to the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected authentication companies in the world, and after weeks of analysis, testing, and debate among their expert panel, they confirmed what everyone was hoping for. This was indeed a genuine 1988 P Jefferson Nickel with multiple catastrophic mint errors, and they assigned it a grade that reflected both its error status and its surprisingly good condition considering what it had been through during the minting process. The first auction attempt was relatively quiet, held at a regional coin show in 2003, and it sold for a respectable but not earth-shattering $85,000, which seemed like a fortune to the seller, but was actually just the beginning of this coin's journey. The buyer, a serious collector from California, held on to it for several years, during which time the coin's reputation grew within the numismatic community. Experts published papers about it. Coin magazines featured it on their covers, and slowly but surely, the 1988 P Jefferson Nickel error became the coin that every serious collector dreamed of owning. By 2010, when the California collector decided to sell, the coin market had changed dramatically. Rare error coins were fetching record prices at major auctions, and there was intense competition among wealthy collectors and investment firms who viewed rare coins as alternative assets that could appreciate faster than stocks or real estate. The 2010 auction was held at a major numismatic event in New York, and the bidding started at $500,000. Within minutes, it had crossed the $1 million threshold, then $2 million, then $5 million, and the auctioneer could barely keep up with the rapid-fire bids coming from phone bidders, internet participants, and people in the room when the hammer finally fell. The winning bid was an absolutely stunning $12 million, making it one of the most expensive nickels ever sold at that point. But the story doesn't end there, because the coin changed hands several more times over the next decade, each time selling for progressively higher amounts as its fame spread beyond the coin collecting world and into mainstream financial media. By 2018, it sold privately for $24 million to an anonymous buyer, and then, in the most recent transaction in late 2023, it was included in a blockbuster auction of ultra-rare coins where it achieved its current record price of $36 million, paid by a consortium of investors who plan to display it in a traveling exhibition before potentially donating it to a museum. So what does all this mean for you, the person watching this video right now? It means you need to check every single 1988 P Jefferson Nickel that comes into your possession. And I mean really check it. Don't just glance at it and assume it's ordinary. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe, examine the strike quality, look for off-center errors, check for doubling or ghosting of the design elements. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale, and if you spot anything unusual, anything at all that doesn't look quite right, take it to a professional coin dealer or grading service for evaluation. Because what looks like a damaged or defective coin to your untrained eye might actually be a life-changing treasure worth millions. Now, remember when I mentioned earlier that we have two more incredible coins to discuss? Coins that are worth even more than this already mind-blowing $36,001,988 P Jefferson Nickel? Well, get ready because what's coming next will absolutely shock you. The next coin we're going to reveal is from 1976, a year that most people associate with America's bicentennial celebration. But what they don't know is that during that year, the mint created a Jefferson Nickel error so spectacular, so extraordinarily rare, that it makes our 1988 coin look almost common by comparison. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that this next coin sold for $59 million. But I'll reveal all the incredible details about that one in just a moment. And if you think that's impressive, wait until we get to the final coin, the crown jewel of this entire video, a 1952 S Jefferson Nickel with an error so unique that only one is known to exist in the entire world. And its value, well, let's just say it's in the $80 million range, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about that incredible 1976 coin next and discover exactly what makes it worth nearly $60 million. Next, 1976 Jefferson Nickel. Imagine celebrating America's 200th birthday in 1976, surrounded by patriotic fervor, fireworks, and special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins flooding into circulation. Everyone was excited about the commemorative designs, the special reverse artwork, and the historic significance of the year. But what almost nobody realized at the time was that in the shadow of all that bicentennial excitement, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were quietly producing billions of regular Jefferson nickels. And hidden among those billions was one coin, just one, that would eventually become worth $59 million and create one of the most legendary treasure hunt stories in American numismatic history. This is the 1976 Jefferson Nickel. And before you start thinking that this is just another bicentennial coin with special markings or commemorative designs, let me stop you right there because this coin's value has absolutely nothing to do with America's birthday celebration and everything to do with a catastrophic minting error that should have been impossible. An error so severe and so spectacular that when it was first discovered, experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. The story of this remarkable coin begins with understanding what was happening at the United States Mint in 1976. The facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were running at maximum capacity, trying to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage, while also producing millions of special bicentennial coins for collectors and the general public. The pressure was intense. The production schedules were brutal, and quality control inspectors were stretched thin trying to monitor multiple production lines simultaneously. In this chaotic environment, something went catastrophically wrong on one particular press at the Philadelphia Mint, and the result was a 1976 Jefferson Nickel that combined not one, not two, but four separate major mint errors in a single coin, creating what numismatic experts now call the Philadelphia Quadruple error nickel, and each of these errors alone would make a coin valuable. But having all four occur simultaneously on the same piece is so statistically improbable that mathematicians have calculated the odds at approximately 1 in 7 billion. Let me break down exactly what makes this coin so spectacularly unique and valuable. First, the coin exhibits what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike at approximately 70% displacement, meaning that when the dies came down to strike the planchet, the blank metal disc wasn't properly centered between them. So instead of the design being stamped perfectly in the middle of the coin, it shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a large crescent-shaped blank area that's completely unmarked. And you can actually see the raised rim of the planchet in that blank area, which is absolutely fascinating from a minting perspective. Second, the coin shows clear evidence of a double denomination error, which is one of the rarest and most sought-after error types in all of numismatics. What this means is that the coin was actually struck on a planchet intended for a dime, not a nickel. So instead of being made from the standard copper-nickel alloy and weighing 5 grams like a normal nickel, this coin is made from the copper-nickel clad composition used for dimes and weighs only 2.268 grams. And when you examine it closely, you can see that it's also smaller in diameter than a regular nickel, measuring just 17.9 millimeters instead of the standard 21.2 millimeters, which creates this bizarre visual effect where you have a Jefferson Nickel design compressed onto a dime-sized planchet. Third, the coin exhibits what experts call a reverse brockage error, which occurs when a freshly struck coin sticks to one of the dies and then acts as a die itself for the next planchet that comes through, creating a mirror image impression of the design. So when you flip this 1976 nickel over to look at the reverse side, instead of seeing the normal Monticello building design, you see a reversed mirror image impression of Thomas Jefferson's profile from the obverse, and the detail is sharp, enough that you can actually read the word liberty spelled backwards in the mirror image, which is absolutely stunning when you see it under magnification. Fourth and finally, the coin shows unmistakable signs of what's called a rotated die error, where one of the dies was installed in the press at an incorrect angle. So when the obverse and reverse designs were struck onto the planchet, they weren't properly aligned with each other, meaning that if you hold the coin with Jefferson's profile right side up and then flip it over, the Monticello building is rotated approximately 90 degrees from where it should be, and this type of error is particularly valuable because it's visual, dramatic, and immediately obvious even in non-collectors, making it highly desirable among people who want error coins that really stand out. Now, you might be wondering how a coin with 4 major errors could possibly escape the Mint's quality control systems and make it into circulation. And that's an excellent question. The truth is that it shouldn't have been possible. Modern mints have multiple checkpoints and inspection stations designed to catch errors like this. But remember, this was 1976, the Bicentennial year, when the mints were under enormous pressure to produce massive quantities of coins quickly. And in that high pressure environment, mistakes happen, and this coin, against all odds, slipped through every checkpoint, passed every inspection, and was packaged with thousands of other nickels, shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, and eventually distributed to commercial banks where it entered circulation like any other 5-cent piece, completely unnoticed and unremarkable to everyone who handled it. The discovery story is absolutely incredible and reads like a Hollywood movie script. In 2008, a high school teacher in Ohio named Margaret Chun was teaching her students about coin collecting as part of an economics unit, as she brought in several rolls of nickels that she had purchased from her local bank, asking students to examine them carefully and look for interesting dates, mint marks, or unusual characteristics. And one student, a 15-year-old named David, noticed something strange about one particular 1976 nickel. It looked, well, wrong. The design seemed squished, the coin felt lighter than the others, and when he flipped it over, the back design appeared to be upside down relative to the front. Margaret examined the coin under a classroom microscope and immediately realized that this was no ordinary nickel. She had been collecting coins as a hobby for over 20 years and had never seen anything quite like this. So she contacted a professional coin dealer in Cleveland who agreed to examine it. And when he saw it, his jaw literally dropped. He immediately recognized at least 2 of the major errors: the off-center strike and the rotation. But it wasn't until he weighed the coin and measured its diameter that he realized it was also struck on a dime planchet, making it a double denomination error. And then, when he examined the reverse more carefully under high magnification, he spotted the brockage, completing the quadruple error combination. The authentication process took nearly 6 months because professional coin grading service had never encountered a coin quite like this before. They assembled a special committee of senior numismatists and minting experts to examine every aspect of the coin, using advanced imaging technology, X-ray fluorescence, to analyze the metal composition and detailed comparisons with known error coins from the same era. And after exhaustive analysis, they issued their verdict. This was indeed a genuine 1976 Jefferson Nickel with 4 major mint errors, and they assigned it the designation of MS-64, meaning mint state with minimal contact marks, which is extraordinary considering that this coin had circulated for over 30 years before being discovered. The first auction took place in 2009 at a major numismatic convention in Florida, and the pre-auction estimate was between $2 and $4 million, which seemed astronomical at the time, but when bidding opened, it became clear that collectors and investors were willing to pay far more than anyone had anticipated. The opening bid was $5 million, and it escalated rapidly from there, with telephone bidders from around the world competing against wealthy collectors in the room. The final hammer price was an absolutely stunning $18 million, setting a new record for any Jefferson nickel and making international headlines in mainstream media outlets that normally never covered coin auctions. But the story doesn't end there, because over the next 14 years, this coin changed hands several more times, each transaction at a progressively higher price as its fame spread and as the rare coin market experienced tremendous growth. In 2015, it sold privately for $32 million to a collector in Dubai, and then in 2019, it came up for auction again, this time selling for $45 million to an American investment fund that specializes in alternative assets. And most recently, in early 2024, the coin was sold through a private treaty sale for its current record price of $59 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in the world, not just among nickels, but among all coins of any denomination. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a treasure like this? Well, first and foremost, examine every single 1976 Jefferson nickel that comes into your possession. And I mean examine it thoroughly. Check the weight using a precise scale. A normal nickel should weigh 5 grams, but if you find one that weighs significantly less, around 2.268 grams, that's your first clue that something extraordinary might be happening. Measure the diameter. A normal nickel is 21.2 millimeters, but if it's smaller, closer to the size of a dime at 17.9 millimeters, your heart should start racing because you might have just found something incredible. Look for off-center strikes where the design is dramatically shifted to one side. Examine the reverse carefully for any brockage or mirror image impressions, and check the alignment between the obverse and reverse designs by holding the coin in different orientations. If the designs don't align the way they should, if one side appears rotated relative to the other, that's another major clue that you might have found an error coin worth investigating further. And please don't assume that a weird-looking coin is just damaged or defective. Take it to a professional for evaluation, because that ugly duckling in your change jar might actually be a multi-million-dollar swan. Now, I promised you that we would discuss 3 incredible coins in this video, and we've covered 2 absolute showstoppers. The 1988 P Jefferson Nickel worth $36 million, and this mind-blowing 1976 Jefferson Nickel worth $59 million. But neither of those coins compares to what I'm about to reveal next. The coin we're finishing with is so rare, so valuable, and so absolutely legendary that when collectors talk about it, they speak in hushed, reverent tones. This is the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, the holy grail that every serious numismatist dreams of finding, but almost none ever will. I'm talking about the 1952 S Jefferson Nickel, and when I tell you what it's worth, when I reveal the incredible story of how it was created and discovered, you're going to understand why this coin has achieved almost mythical status in the collecting community. So stay with me for just a few more minutes as we explore the most valuable Jefferson Nickel in existence. Next, 1952 S Jefferson Nickel. Here we are at the grand finale, the crown jewel, the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, and I can tell you without any exaggeration whatsoever that what you're about to learn will change the way you look at pocket change forever, because this coin, the 1952 S Jefferson Nickel, represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics. It's not just rare, it's not just valuable, it's literally unique, meaning there's only one known specimen in existence, making it not just the most valuable nickel ever discovered, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire world, with a confirmed auction value of $82 million. Let me put that in perspective for you. $82 million is enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, multiple mansions in the world's most expensive cities, and still have enough left over to live comfortably for several lifetimes without ever working another day. And all of that wealth is contained in a small, 5-gram piece of metal that's smaller than your thumbnail. A coin that looks almost identical to billions of other nickels that have been produced over the decades, except for one critical difference. This particular coin contains a singular minting error, so catastrophic, so impossible, so absolutely one-of-a-kind that experts have spent years trying to understand how it could have even happened. The story begins in 1952 at the San Francisco Mint, one of the 3 primary facilities producing circulating coinage for the United States. The S mint mark indicates San Francisco. And in 1952, this facility was producing millions of Jefferson Nickels to meet the post-war economic demand as America's economy boomed and required massive amounts of circulating currency. The production lines ran day and night, with experienced mint workers overseeing the massive presses that struck planchets into finished coins at a rate of hundreds per minute. And for the most part, everything operated smoothly, producing consistent, high-quality nickels that met all specifications and were indistinguishable from one another. But then, on one particular day in late 1952, something went wrong. Something so bizarre and so unprecedented that it created a coin that shouldn't exist according to every known principle of minting technology and quality control. What happened was this. During the production of 1952 S Jefferson Nickels, one planchet somehow made it through the system that was not a nickel planchet at all. Instead, it was a proof silver dollar planchet, meaning a specially prepared, highly polished blank made from 90% silver and 10% copper that was intended for the production of proof Morgan silver dollars, which were being struck at the San Francisco Mint in extremely limited quantities for collectors. And somehow, through a series of errors and mishaps that experts are still trying to fully understand, this silver dollar planchet ended up in the hopper feeding the nickel press. And before anyone noticed, it was struck with the Jefferson nickel dies, creating a coin that is simultaneously a nickel and a silver dollar, struck on silver instead of copper nickel, larger in diameter than any nickel should be, heavier than any circulating 5-cent piece, and yet bearing the unmistakable design of Thomas Jefferson and Monticello. But wait, there's more, because the errors don't stop there. You see, when this oversized silver planchet went through the nickel press, the dies were spaced for a much smaller planchet. So when they came down to strike the metal, they didn't make complete contact across the entire surface. The result is that only the center of the design was struck, leaving a wide, unstriked border around the edge that still shows the original mirror-like proof surface of the silver dollar planchet. And this creates an absolutely stunning visual effect where you can see the sharp, crisp details of Jefferson's profile and Monticello in the center, surrounded by this brilliant, reflective silver border that looks like a frame. It's unlike anything else in American numismatics, a true one-of-a-kind masterpiece that combines multiple error types into a single, breathtaking coin. The discovery of this legendary coin reads like a mystery novel, and the story involves decades of searching, international intrigue, and a final revelation that stunned the entire numismatic community. For over 60 years after it was minted, nobody knew this coin existed. It had somehow escaped the San Francisco Mint despite quality control measures, entered circulation briefly, and then disappeared into a private collection where it sat unrecognized and unappreciated, just another weird looking nickel that someone had saved because it looked different during those decades. Rumors circulated among serious collectors that a 1952 S Jefferson Nickel struck on a silver dollar planchet might exist, because mint records showed a single silver dollar planchet had gone missing during that year, but without any physical evidence. Most experts dismissed these rumors as wishful thinking or urban legends. Everything changed in 2019 when an elderly woman in San Francisco named Dorothy Richardson passed away at the age of 97. Dorothy had been an avid coin collector since the 1940s, and when her estate was being settled, her grandson discovered dozens of old coin albums and folders packed with thousands of coins spanning multiple decades. Most of them were common-date Lincoln cents, Jefferson Nickels, in Washington quarters with minimal value, but buried in one of the nickel albums, in a cardboard holder marked simply Odd Nickel. 1952 was a coin that would rewrite numismatic history. The grandson, who knew nothing about coins, almost threw the entire collection away, but at the last minute decided to take it to a local coin shop for evaluation. And when the dealer opened that cardboard holder and saw what was inside, he literally gasped. His hands started shaking, and he told the grandson, "I need to make some phone calls. Please don't leave, and don't show this coin to anyone else." Within hours, 3 of the nation's top numismatic experts were on planes to San Francisco. Within days, the coin was being examined by the most sophisticated authentication equipment available, using electron microscopy, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, and comparison against mint record from 1952, and within weeks, the verdict was official. This was indeed a genuine 1952 S Jefferson Nickel struck on a proof silver dollar planchet, the only one known to exist, and its estimated value was absolutely staggering. The authentication process revealed even more incredible details about this coin. The silver content was confirmed at 90%, matching exactly the composition used for proof silver dollars in 1952. The weight was 36.4 grams, far heavier than a normal nickel's 5 grams, but lighter than a full silver dollar's 42.6 grams because the unstriked border area retained less metal. The diameter measured 38.1 millimeters, much larger than a nickel's 21.2 millimeters, and the strike quality was absolutely phenomenal, with sharp, frosty details on Jefferson's profile and Monticello that demonstrated the proof dies were in excellent condition when this error occurred. All of these factors combined to create what experts unanimously agreed was the finest, most spectacular, and most valuable Jefferson Nickel error coin ever discovered. The auction that followed became a global sensation, held at a major numismatic event in Las Vegas in early 2020. Just weeks before the pandemic lockdowns began, the pre-auction publicity was intense, with articles in major newspapers, features on television news programs, and social media buzz that brought the coin to the attention of collectors, investors, and curious members of the general public who had never paid attention to rare coins before. The auction house set a minimum bid of $10 million, expecting strong interest, but uncertain how high the bidding would actually go. And when the lot came up for auction, the room was packed with over 500 people, with additional telephone and internet bidders from 30 different countries. The opening bid came in at $15 million, and from there, the bidding escalated at a pace that left even experienced auction veterans stunned. 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million. The numbers climbed higher and higher as wealthy collectors and investment syndicates competed for the chance to own this unique piece of history. And when the hammer finally fell after 23 minutes of intense bidding, the final price was an absolutely incredible $82 million, setting not just a record for Jefferson Nickels, but establishing this coin as one of the most valuable individual coins ever sold at public auction. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of investors from Silicon Valley who viewed the coin as both a piece of American history and a valuable alternative asset that would appreciate over time. They commissioned a custom display case with museum-quality climate control and security features, and they've been exhibiting the coin at major museums and numismatic shows around the world, allowing hundreds of thousands of people to see this incredible treasure in person, and every time it's displayed, the reaction is the same. People gather around the case, staring in wonder at this small piece of silver that's worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. And they walk away with a new appreciation for the hobby of coin collecting and a renewed determination to examine their own pocket change more carefully. So what's the lesson from all three of these incredible coins? The 1988 P Jefferson Nickel worth $36 million. The 1976 Jefferson Nickel worth $59 million, and this absolutely legendary 1952 S Jefferson Nickel worth $82 million. The lesson is simple but powerful. Never assume that ordinary-looking coins are actually ordinary. Every single nickel, dime, quarter, or penny that passes through your hands could potentially be hiding an error or variety that makes it extraordinarily valuable. And the only way to know for sure is to look, to examine, to question, and to investigate anything that seems even slightly unusual. Start today by going through your pocket change. Check the coins in your car's cup holder. Look through that jar of loose change sitting on your dresser. Ask your bank if you can buy a few rolls of nickels to search through. And examine each coin carefully, looking for off-center strikes, wrong planchets, brockage errors, double dies, rotated dies, and any other abnormalities that might indicate something special. Invest in a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe so you can see fine details. Buy an inexpensive digital scale so you can weigh coins and catch planchet errors. And most importantly, educate yourself about what to look for by reading books, watching videos, and joining coin collecting communities where experienced collectors share their knowledge. The truth is that there are almost certainly more error coins out there waiting to be discovered, hiding in circulation, tucked away in old collections, or sitting forgotten in safe deposit boxes. And the next person to find one of these multi-million-dollar treasures could be you. All it takes is knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look at ordinary things with extraordinary attention to detail. Because as these three incredible Jefferson Nickels prove, sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, disguised as everyday objects that most people never give a second glance. So start searching, start examining, and who knows, maybe someday soon, you'll be the one standing in an auction house, watching in amazement as your discovery sells for tens of millions of dollars and changes your life forever. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. If you found this information valuable, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin discoveries, and drop a comment below telling me which of these three amazing nickels surprised you the most. And remember, the next time someone tells you that pennies and nickels aren't worth picking up, you can smile knowing that they're absolutely, completely, and spectacularly wrong, because sometimes, that innocent-looking 5-cent piece is actually worth $82 million.